All right, let's go ahead and get started. In case anyone joins us late, they can get caught up later, I'm sure. But just want to take a quick second to thank all of you for taking the time to join today's webinar. My name is Miguel Lopes. I'm a regional sales manager here at Yardi. I am joined by Paul Fiorilla, Director of Research. He's been in the CRE industry as a writer and researcher for the last 26 years, the last 8 specifically with Yardi, and he oversees all of Yardi Matrix's research publications. In just a moment, Paul will be discussing some trends and forecasts that may impact residential operators in 2023. But before that, I'd like to also introduce Wendy Bedrosian, Senior Team Lead. She's been with Yardi for almost 7 years, supporting clients through every stage of their software experience. And Wendy and I will have a nice chat in a moment where we will help you assess your tech stack, navigate the process of changing systems, and of course, also show you what some success will look like. But for now, I'd like to hand it over to Paul.
Hey, thank you, Miguel. It's great to be here today. I'm going to turn my screen off or my picture off. Today I'm going to do a little bit of an outlook of the multifamily industry. We'll start with a little bit of history. If you go back to the global financial crisis in the early part, about 8-10 years ago, the multifamily industry economic growth and rent growth really started to pick up, and we had, a very long period of, I guess, what you call moderate growth and sustained and consistent growth. Then came the pandemic. We lost 22 million jobs, followed by a recovery where those jobs came back, but at the same time, it created an uptick in inflation to levels not seen for the last 40 years. Inflation was caused by several factors, including, pent-up consumer demand from the stimulus. A lot of people, rushed to buy goods when they were freed from being at home. The war in Ukraine had a big impact on energy prices, and the increasing costs of the supply chain, due to all the transportation snafus and everything in that sector. So, we're now at 8% inflation earlier this year, and the Federal Reserve trying to put a stop to that, started to raise interest rates, and has now raised them from 0 to about 3.75 to 4%. With the idea that they're going to keep going up until inflation comes down even further. So where does that leave us in as far as multifamily fundamentals and the outlook? Well, one major thing, obviously, is that we're going to see a deceleration of rent growth. We just came through a period of the most rapid rent growth in the market's history last year. According to the Yardi Matrix, rents went up 15% nationally, asking rents did, which is 3 times just about any other year in history as far as rent growth. Now this year, the year started pretty strong, but now rents have in recent months decelerated and flattened. And I think that the deceleration is something that's going to continue. And why do I think that? Well, there's several main reasons. The first is a slowdown in migration. So, starting in 2020, there was an exacerbation of long-term migration trends. In other words, there's been a migration trend from the coastal areas, high-cost metros to the Sun Belt for decades, but it was speeded up rather rapidly in 2020 as some people who lost their jobs decided to look for cheaper housing in different metros, or people who no longer had to go to the office every day in places like New York and San Francisco decided that they were going to move somewhere that was a little bit more conducive to their lifestyle. And that pulled forward a lot of natural migration that we might have seen in coming years. So now that migration that really picked up is starting to slow down. So the markets that benefited from that migration with strong demand that's going to diminish. Another major reason that rent growth is decelerating is slower household formation. 2021 saw a record level of multifamily absorption, according to Yardi Matrix data. So we had about 600,000 apartment units net absorbed in 2021, which is more than double, I think, just about the previous high. And what caused that? Well, there was a lot of rebound in the job market, right? We talked about the 22 million jobs that came back. So there was strong job growth. Along with that came very strong wage growth. Wage growth last couple of years has been higher than we've seen in again, a very long time, and it's still about 5%. And plus, people still had leftover money from their stimulus checks. So all that meant that a lot of households were able to form. People were able to, say, leave their parents' house or be decoupled from roommate situations, and that created a huge amount of household formation, more than there is in a normal year. Well, now that now that the job market is slowing down, you're starting to see layoffs. Meta, Twitter, a lot of companies are now starting to either lay off or slow down their hiring. And also, as people's, household savings start to diminish, we're starting to see a very slower level of household formation. So we'll have less demand for apartments pretty much nationwide. Third reason, for the slowdown in the rent deceleration is affordability. Metros that were relatively cheap a couple of years ago are less so now that rents have gone up 25, 30, 35% over the last couple of years. We'll look at places like Phoenix and Las Vegas that had a huge influx of people. Absorption is starting to turn negative because people who, say, came from California, because it was 40, 50% cheaper. Well, it's not nearly as cheap, relatively speaking, now. So we're going to see some slowdown because of affordability. Also, we have the number of households that pay more than 30% of their income on rent has gone up quite a bit over the last couple of years. That's a factor. Rents over the last, since the recovery started in about 2014, rents have risen almost twice as fast as wages, which is, over the long term, inevitable. So very quickly, what's my near-term forecast here? That rents are going to flatten in the short term. I think we'll see, normally we see seasonally rents are very slow over the winter. I think we'll have pretty much no rent growth, very modest, if any, little rent growth for the next 6 or 8 months. And then when the spring comes, probably moderate growth over the next couple of years. Another big picture impact of what's going on right now with rates and everything else is that sales volume and pricing will take a severe dent, a severe hit, because the cost of financing mortgages are now above what acquisition yields were over the last couple of years. We have negative leverage, which means that unless property owners are forecasting huge increases in rent, which they can't be at this point, banks are becoming more conservative as far as leverage goes. So that means that pricing is going to take somewhat of a haircut. And because of all the uncertainty and valuations, that sales volume is going to drop by sharply in the next couple of quarters. And then third, opportunities will increasingly be in things like debt and mezzanine investments, including gap capital for properties where that have to refinance interest rates, loans that were originated at very low interest rates, having to refinance into a more conservative, higher rate environment. That's going to require some capital for mezzanine and preferred equity. So, opportunities over the next couple of quarters will probably be focused, and even, maybe even longer than that, will be focused on, debt and other parts of the capital stack.
Well, thanks, Paul. It's important that we understand the current and future economic landscape of the multifamily industry. Like Paul said, as rents begin to flatten in the near term, it's important that companies solidify and reinforce their tech stack in order to protect their margins. And like I said earlier, I'm joined by Wendy, and we'll be chatting about how to assess your tech stack, navigate the process of changing systems, and show you what exactly success should look like. So, Wendy, how does a property management system help improve efficiency when growing a portfolio?
Absolutely. So the first point that comes to mind is if a property management company switches to a cloud-based program, that in turn is going to decrease IT overhead and maintenance. This also ensures that the platform remains on the latest and greatest version in terms of functionality and security. And as we know, security is a major factor when considering day-to-day interactions with sensitive data and property management. Another hot topic is program accessibility. With advances in cloud hosting and businesses relying more and more on technology, it's imperative that users access data at any time and anywhere. A lot of individuals are on the road or walking about on a property. The expectation is that they can take their property management software along with them. Lastly, switching to one system of record as opposed to using spreadsheets and other manual tracking methods is something we expect users to benefit from as well. It can be difficult and inefficient to maintain separate systems to run your business. One of the key reasons to increase efficiency is a direct result of existing staffing shortages that we're seeing. So to increase this efficiency, our clients are wanting to introduce automation into their processes, which in turn helps decrease time spent on repetitive but necessary tasks. Features like automated communications, monthly tenant billing, online applications are examples of tasks that can be streamlined with little to no involvement. And I guess speaking of inefficiencies, switching systems can decrease the need for parallel data entry into multiple systems. Businesses may be using multiple solutions that don't necessarily integrate with each other. This can add duplicate efforts, which takes more time and costs more money.
So besides improving efficiency, why else are property managers switching systems?
Yeah, definitely. So another reason that comes to mind is simply to increase convenience for renters and owners. We live in a completely different world since the pandemic, and it's prompted our clients to seek touch-free solutions to ensure the safety of our employees or their employees and residents. Making payments, submitting maintenance requests, or even signing lease documents are all activities that can be done virtually. Features like online resident portals are becoming the new standard. And then lastly, people are switching due to poor customer support. End users need different support mediums to be successful. Offerings like a robust help center, chat support with an actual human, or calling in is a necessity. We see a lot of people switching because they need the support to set up and operate their software. Every business is unique in some way and requires support from their software provider to brainstorm the best solutions.
So there are clearly a ton of great reasons to switch systems. When is the best time to make that type of switch?
Great question. So if you're considering switching to a new property management system, there are a few key considerations you'll want to discuss before choosing a date to move forward. For example, one item that comes to mind is software license expirations or other responsibilities such as 1099s, which are coming up, tax season, budgeting, etc. Seems like every season is a busy season, but try to determine the least labor-intensive time of the year for your business. We recommend planning around those current dates and come to us about 60 to 90 days before you'd like to begin processing out of your new software. We aim to be in the setup phase around 60 to 90 days before go live. Another specific example to keep in mind is if your portfolio is planning to expand, plan to start before the new acquisition happens. So you start day one in that new system. That allows tasks like registering tenants to a new portal to be executed without disruption. And lastly, your go live date. First is a popular date, and it may sound ideal, but that's typically when we see move-ins, rent collecting, so maybe the second week would be more appropriate and successful.
Oh, makes sense. So now that we understand when to switch, what are some hesitations and concerns that we hear from companies that are considering or ongoing through a software transition?
Yeah, I think it's understandable to have some concerns when making such a big change. Most hesitations that clients have, however, can be planned for and overcome. The first hesitation we see that's fairly common are worries about the learning curve of adapting a new software or lack of buy-in from the end users. People worry about their leasing staff learning a new software and feeling comfortable doing their day-to-day tasks. To help offset this, staff should educate themselves in the setup process and fully immerse themselves into the program. Implementations don't have to be scary. They can actually be fun and exciting. Users who embrace the change and are eager to lean into the benefits of a new software tend to be the most successful. We also see hesitation in coordinating tenant-facing changes, such as adopting a new online portal, but there are strategies in the setup process that you can help ensure a smooth transition for your tenants. For example, giving them plenty of advance notice, or even better, provide multiple notices and deadlines with instructions, of course, for them to sign up and get their online payment accounts configured and ready to make payments for the first of the month. That way there's not a surprise when that time comes. Then lastly, the setup duration in general, either due to lack of resources or dedicate to the setup project. You might be thinking, how are we going to get this done, and how are we going to get this done quickly? Divide and conquer. Specify who is helping with what tasks. For example, an accountant should be responsible for bringing over financials, but maybe a member of the leasing team should be the one inputting tenant information. Set reasonable deadlines for certain tasks leading up to your go live date.
Thanks, Wendy. And now on to my favorite part of our chat today. Let's discuss how partnering with a strong software provider can help your business thrive. Do you happen to have any success stories that you'd like to share?
Yeah, let's move on to the next slide here. This is also my favorite part. On the screen is we have Robert Chang. He's the CEO of Robert Chang Real Estate Services in California. He was an early adopter of Breeze, and he loved the efficiencies and time it saved, as well as the excellent support. When Breeze Premier was released, he decided to upgrade to take advantage of our job costing and invoice processing features. Since upgrading to Premier, Mr. Chang has been pleasantly surprised with additional time saved by his staff. The flexible reporting tools and rent collection automation are just a couple of the features Mr. Chang claims are saving him and his staff around 40 hours a month. This time is now better spent elsewhere within their organization. And in addition to this specific example, we also have a number of clients who've converted over from a legacy product to our latest program, and those people have never used online payments for collecting rent. By them switching to an up-to-date software, our clients are able to take advantage of setting up online payments, which in turn decreases the amount of time they have to handle physical checks. It has also brought down data entry, since our online payments simultaneously create a transaction in their system. So I would also consider this trend a big success.
I would agree. It's definitely a big success. So how would you support clients during and after the transition to a new software? I know Breeze and Breeze Premier has a live chat, which is pretty unique. Can you tell me more about that too?
Sure, absolutely. So for the setup aspect, we pair clients with an onboarding product expert. We really take the time to understand our clients' goals and deadlines, so we have a better idea of where to prioritize our time and efforts. Our team's going to guide the end users through the required setup steps, in addition to educating them on prerequisites and dependencies for using other features. The goal is to make our users super users of the program. We're huge advocates for empowering our clients and educating them. And since our software is an industry standard, learning our products is a definite return on investment. In regards to day-to-day support, after the setup portion is complete, we offer chat support or phone support built right into the program. It's important to note that there's actually a human assisting our clients on the other end. It's not a bot. We understand that each client's business is complex and unique, and their data reflects that. Our chat agents are excellent teachers and troubleshooters. So there's going to be moments when our help center doesn't necessarily address specific questions, and that's where we're there to help. We do a lot of research and preparation to ensure we provide our clients an accurate answer, even if it takes longer. We want to give a detailed and accurate answer as opposed to an immediate and potentially wrong answer.
Well, I'm sure our clients appreciate you guys being thorough. And it's definitely a bit naive to think that there will never be any issues with your property management system or any software that you use for that matter. How do we address when our clients have business critical issues?
In an ideal world, you're right. We would never run into any critical issues, but it does happen. Every client has an escalation point. If anything, business halting or critical comes up, that means they actually have an individual person that they can reach out to. So like any scenario or issue, we gather as much information as possible up front so we can pull in the right resources and act quickly on the next best steps toward a resolution.
Well, definitely. Well, I'd like to wrap up now by saying thank you to Wendy and Paul. I know I learned a lot from our chat today, and my hope is hopefully all of you learned something new today as well. Should there be any follow-up questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me directly. All of my contact information is on screen now. Apologies as the chat is disabled, but the best way to get any outstanding questions would be by sending me over a quick email. And just want to say thank you to everyone again for joining and have a great rest of your day.